Welcome back to the Takeout. Welcome to the Conversation Corner. You know I love hanging out here. Government shutdown, well, you know it, I know it, entering its fourth week. House, you might not know this, but it's true, remains in recess, not operating at all. That's at Speaker Mike Johnson's direction. And he says it's not going to come back into any kind of session until the government reopens, which means it's a Senate thing. Maybe, maybe not. Maryland Democratic Congressman Johnny Olszewski joins me now. Well known to his friends as Johnny O. I'm not sure if I'm a friend, if I qualify, but Johnny, it's great to have you here.
You qualify, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
You heard Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz said direct Medicaid dollars in certain states in this country are going to undocumented immigrants in violation of federal law, and Democrats are not reopening the government because they want to turn that spigot back on.
We're not trying to change well-established federal law. And if there's a violation of federal law, if there's fraud in Medicaid, that should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And if it's happening currently, it's happening under this administration's watch. And so I would encourage the Trump administration to take a look at what's happening and to enforce federal law working with states. I don't think anyone wants to see the law violated, and current law is very clear. If you are undocumented, you are not eligible for Medicaid.
But you are among the House Democrats that object to changes in the so-called One Beautiful Bill, Big Beautiful Bill, that impose new work requirements and other stipulations to even qualify for Medicaid.
You know, the truth of the matter is that most people are already working. And so the vast majority the vast majority of people on Medicaid are already working. And so I think it's a little bit of a distraction from the issue and the billions of dollars of cuts that are made both there as well as food benefits with SNAP and TANF for hardworking Americans who are just trying to get by. And in exchange for what? In exchange for ballooning our deficit and for one of the largest wealth transfers from the working class to the ultra wealthy in this country. And so we're seeing that again now, where there's a lack of desire to come together during the shutdown and extend the subsidies for almost 20 million Americans who rely on those subsidies to make healthcare affordable. I mean, we're staring at up to $3,000 tax increase. That's what it is. If we don't act, we're going to raise taxes on hardworking Americans across this country. In addition to people who are lucky enough to have an employer-based healthcare plan, those rates are going to go up too.
Johnny O, based on differing estimates, the range 5 million to 7 million Americans participated this Saturday in No Kings protests. Here's the President of the United States and his reaction.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. I'm not a king. I work my off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
Johnny O. Congressman, forgive me.
That's fine.
Either way.
That's what everybody back home calls me. Look, it's not a joke. It is exercising one of the most fundamental rights that we have as Americans, to go out there and peacefully demonstrate against our government. Free speech is a bedrock of our Constitution, of our democracy. And actually what was disheartening and was disappointing was to see the president, after millions of Americans showed up to protest many of his actions, he then posted an AI-generated video of him literally putting feces over Americans. I mean, it is beneath the dignity of that office, and it is deeply disturbing and concerning to me.
And when he says, looking at the crowds, they're not representative of what America is, what does that suggest to you?
I think that it means the president needs to go back to my American government class. I was an American government teacher before coming to Congress, and, you know, this is what our country is all about having that robust discourse. And actually, Congress and the Trump administration could probably learn something by going to these protests and these rallies and actually talking to the people who showed up. I attended 2 this past weekend. There was no George Soros. There was no organized. These were average people coming out because they were concerned about any number of issues of what they're seeing from this administration, and they want to see change.
Congressman, your district, Baltimore County, how many federal workers?
We have over 20,000 federal workers in my district alone.
Are they burning up your phone saying, end this shutdown so I can get paid?
Absolutely.
But they want you to do something different, or they want you to do exactly what you're doing?
But they also want us to do something about the healthcare costs. What's that?
Do they want you to end it and capitulate or give in, or do they want you to keep fighting?
They want to go back to work, but they also want us to address this looming healthcare crisis. And so we are hearing from...
You're not getting any static on that?
Of course. Look, these 3 things I know are true about the shutdown. One is that our federal employees are taking the brunt of this. They have mortgages to pay, kids to feed. That Americans are also suffering through this, where our food isn't being inspected, our airlines are being canceled because we don't have enough air traffic controllers. And that 3, Americans want us to just sit down in a room and actually have a conversation. I think we should lock the president and the leadership of both parties in a room and not let them come out until something happens. I mean, it is so frustrating to me that Speaker Johnson has now canceled votes for the third week in a row. Congress is not working. Meanwhile, Americans are dealing with a cost of living crisis that is crushing them at home. And so we could do so much to address that, whether it's housing, childcare, electric bills. Congress should be in session addressing that and releasing the Epstein files.
Welcome back to the Takeout. Senate Democrats and those who caucus with them continue to demand binding negotiations with the White House on access to health care, Medicaid, and enhanced Obamacare subsidies before they will vote to end the current government shutdown. Here was Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders today on CBS Mornings.
Before I vote on a bill that will right now allow 50,000 people to die unnecessarily, I want it absolutely clear that that will not happen.
Administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, joins me now. Dr. Oz, your reaction to Bernie Sanders?
I'm not sure what he's talking about. There's no program that I'm aware of that's going to lead to the death of 50,000 Americans. But what I will tell you is that a lot of the arguments made by the Democrats are falling flat because the more we investigate their claims that there was no fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid, for example, which was a major focus of the One Big Beautiful Bill, this now called the Working Families Tax Cut legislation that the Senate passed. Bernie Sanders wasn't part of that, but enough of his colleagues voted for it that it became the law of the land, addressed a lot of this fraud, waste, and abuse. And we decided to go an extra step. And I want to announce that data here today with you. We asked investigators, and we upgraded the team doing this. We sent them out and said, find out how many people were actually getting Medicaid funding who were illegal immigrants, who were undocumented, weren't supposed to be here. Now, we were told that this wasn't happening. It turns out, there's a number. You ready for this, Major? $1.2 billion already in just the last few months were spent by Medicaid, go out of this agency, federal dollars, to support states who are paying for illegal immigrants. Now, this is maddening for a bunch of reasons. First, we were told it wasn't happening. So the One Big Beautiful Bill gave us the ability to go after this funding, which we're now doing. We're going to pull back that funding. In fact, some of the states are realizing that this is money that they were sort of caught red-handed taking from the federal government and are already refunding the money to the federal government. But it also heightens my awareness that there's a lot of misinformation being touted out there by Democrats arguing this is a good reason to close the government. I don't think you should close your government if what we're trying to do is protect taxpayers from having money sent without their knowledge to illegal immigrants in other states. As an example, California, which is responsible for a lion's share of that illegal immigrant funding, they offer free dental, free eye exams. Again, I'm not against those. But if you're going to offer those to Medicaid patients who are illegally here in California, you should not ask taxpayers in Texas or in Florida to pay the bill. Pay it yourself. But that wasn't how the deal was. They wanted to be really nice about this money until it was their money that needed to be spent to pay for it. And as soon as that became evident, they began to pull back on some of those services. So to Bernie Sanders and all the other Democrats arguing that they're shutting down government under false pretext, I want to call their attention to actual facts, on the ground knowledge that we are spending federal tax dollars to support illegal immigrants. We now have a study going in over half a dozen states. The numbers are increasing, and it's alarming. Thank goodness that law was passed. It should not be repealed in order to reopen the government.
So, Dr. Oz, terminology here is very important. And I've heard the states that you're mentioning, specifically California, say that the Medicaid money is separate from the state money that they have allocated for undocumented immigrants. You and other Republicans have argued that it's all fungible. But are you talking about direct Medicaid dollars going directly to undocumented personnel in California or some of these other blue states that have decided to use their own state money to provide these insurance benefits?
Major, yes, yes, yes. Okay. I was told exactly what you were told, that this is a commingling of dollars, not really. Maybe you're blaming us for some administrative costs, but that's not really the case. We're talking about actual dollars that were sent from the federal government to Medicaid in several states. It wasn't just California. And just to give additional credence to my claim, again, this is coming from federal investigators looking at Medicaid dollars spent in California. California has already rebated us several $100s of the money I'm talking about. And we're going to continue to take the rest of the money back because it's not theirs. It's the taxpayers' money. And again, I'm going to reemphasize this. If you're watching this program, and I don't want to pick on California, they're not the only ones that are guilty of this. But if you're in one of the many states that do not allow money to be spent for illegal immigrants on Medicaid, why should your tax dollars to the federal government be redirected to that exact purpose in a different state? It's a nation of 50 states. We should all agree on this issue. If the American people want us to pay for illegal immigrants getting medical care, I'll happily dispense those dollars from Washington. But until we do that, I should not be doing that very thing. And that's why this one big, beautiful bill is so important. It actually prevents people like me, because there'll be future generations of CMS administrators, from doling out money coming into the government from one state that doesn't allow illegal immigrant Medicaid funding to another state that decides they want to do it.
Dr. Oz, we're going to continue this conversation, not on this topic, but on pharmacy benefit managers, Trump RX, and Cost Plus, which is, as you know, run by Mark Cuban. But I want to play for you some sound today that was on CNBC from Mark Cuban about the administration's efforts to reduce prescription drug costs. Please listen.
Dr. Oz has been great. I would tell the Biden administration all this stuff, right? It just wasn't important to them. Some people it was. CMS, they had some great people there, but it just didn't get to the top, right? This administration, completely different. I'm not saying I'm a Donald Trump fan now, but credit where credit is due. They are trying their best to reduce the cost of prescriptions and of health care and of insurance.
And are they receptive to the
all this stuff, right? Yeah, all this stuff, right?
Do you think we'll see that?
No.
Why?
Because the PBMs and their insurance companies are too powerful.
So you heard the last part of that, Dr. Oz. No, it's not going to be successful. Pharmacy benefit managers, too powerful. Insurance companies, too powerful. But Mark Cuban, not a Trump guy, offering you praise for efforts undertaken thus far.
Well, Mark Cuban is a very competitive person, I know, because we both used to play in the NBA Celebrity All-Star games, and I'd have to guard him. He's sharp-elbowed.
Wasn't expecting that reference, but please continue.
But being a competitive person myself, we are going to succeed. And yes, he's right. There are powerful forces who benefit tremendously from the current system, or we would have changed it generations ago. But people like me, and there are many others, Chris Klump, Ana Hernandez, John Brooks, many others have come into government because President Trump recruited us, because he's given us confidence, those of us coming from the private sector, that we can make a difference. It's a generational opportunity to do exactly what Mark Cuban was talking about, to address some of the shortcomings of the current system. And none of us are here for life. You know, I'm glad to do this job for a couple of years, proud to serve the president, and he's passionate about making sure that we don't slow down at all. He just pushes all the time. He calls and says, what's next? The most favored nation pricing is a good example of this. Everybody said it wasn't possible. I don't think anybody that I talked to who knew the space believed that we would be able to achieve what we've already done over the last few weeks, to announce that this country will no longer allow its citizens to pay 3 times more for the exact same drugs made in the same factory, put in the same bottles in this country than those same drugs cost overseas. And we've effected that change with the leading U.S. company, Pfizer, the leading European company, AstraZeneca. Last week, a wonderful program with a subsidiary of Merck that actually does most of the fertility drugs in this country, that drops those prices. And now, Major, we're using most favored nation drug pricing to catalyze other changes in the healthcare system. Because once you bring down pharmacy pricing, the costs of drugs, all of a sudden you can begin to impact on how the pharmacy benefits management companies function. That's the group that Mark Cuban was speaking about, that he competes with his company. And they actually came to the table last week in the Oval Office and agreed to drop their costs so we can make fertility medications more affordable to the American people. That's the kind of catalytic shifts we are expecting and we're already seeing. And there are many others I can give you, but if you go to industry and say, listen, I've got a bat that I can use on you. I've got legal, legislative solutions here, statutory. I've got regulations I can pass. Or we can sit down and have a real hard brass knuckles discussion about what's feasible. If you can do it yourself in a more nimble way, we'll support it.
I want to have you back here to talk about the brass knuckles and the practical realities that brass knuckles can sometimes achieve, even in the most difficult and cumbersome marketplaces. Dr. Oz, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Same, Major. Take care.
On Capitol Hill, ask me if you've heard this before, Republicans and Democrats still divided. It is now day 21 of the government shutdown. I asked former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy about that and much more. Here's our conversation.
I'm back, third time.
Third time.
2 more times I get a robe.
Yeah, exactly. You get a robe and a frequent flyer card.
There we go.
Which is worth absolutely nothing anywhere.
Pretzels
nothing worth it anywhere. All right. This is now the longest full-blown federal government shutdown in American history. There have been longer partial government shutdowns.
Oh, that was partial before. That's
right. Is that a badge of honor for Mike Johnson?
No. I mean, from perspective, you got to realize why this is. Look, I call it the Seinfeld shutdown because it's a shutdown about nothing. We have never shut the government down over a continuing resolution, which to your viewers, which are highly educated political people, that simply means keep government exactly as it is. So there are no advantages to anybody else, but the reason why they shut down, purely political. It's kind of the reverse where Republicans were in 2013. You've got a Republican in the White House for a second term, so Democrats are upset. You've got a CR that happened earlier in the year where Schumer had a book deal and couldn't even go out on a book tour
because he was afraid of his security because of the backlash from the left.
You've got the Democrat leaders, kind of the weakest leaders the Democrats have ever had. Hakeem can't make a decision. He can't deliver a message. And so the masses determine it. So now the rank and file are stronger than their own leaders, and the leaders
But when
are
Democrats say this is about something, it's not Seinfeldian because it's about
what?
Obamacare premiums.
No, it's not, because that's later.
Well, they say it's now because the notices are going to go out. Open enrollment is now, and people are going to deal with the premium increases
now. If you talk to
now.
Democrats at the beginning, that's not what they said.
Okay.
They said they've got to change what Trump is doing. He's got to give us money back. He's got to do this. He's got to reverse course. They are trying to find a message through this.
Okay.
Now, the challenge...
How long does it last?
Well, this is a tough part because it's over a continuing resolution. And you normally feel pressure by now. Normally, you wait until a payday.
Right.
Okay? And the troops not getting paid, nobody can stay. It also is, normally in these fights, everybody starts euphoria. You know, both sides are, we're winning, because the base tells you that. And then you get 2 weeks into it, it's usually pretty defined. But the country's very divided. So Republicans think it's Democrats' fault, Democrats think it's Republicans' fault.
And this White House relishes this shutdown.
Yeah, you're paying the troops. America's not feeling a lot of the pressure yet, so you got to have pressure on them. And I was talking to this Democrat member the other day. They really think they're winning because they say, look, every day Congress is not back in session, we win. I said, what are you talking about? Because you have a Republican majority. We stopped it. They only have so many days to be a majority. They're wasting their time. Well, this is the Democrats' view. So they will keep it going because think about it. You can't pass a Republican agenda. To pass a bill, you have to have a hearing, then a markup. And if the committees aren't meeting, they feel they're winning.
What's going on with Marjorie Taylor Greene?
What do you mean?
Well, she's endorsed the idea of expanding Obamacare, healthcare incentives.
Not expanding it. Her argument is,
and she said that the Republican leadership should end this shutdown and that she's on the Epstein thing. She seems to be positioning herself differently than the rest of the Republican conference in the House.
Well, Marjorie's unique in a manner that she knows her compass and her why. And when she finds an issue, she's fearless. Like, I think most members, if they had a right to vote on Epstein, it'd probably be a 400-vote bill to put it all forward. It just hasn't had the right to have a vote yet.
Because Johnson won't allow it.
Well, when it has a vote, it'll be. I think today he said he's going to allow a vote. I don't know. Don't quote me, but I thought I read a headline like that. What Marjorie's saying about health care is, if you talk deeper with her, she said Obamacare has screwed everything up. Let's not punish people. Let's reform what this subsidy is, because she's worried about the young people not being able to afford care. And, you know, that's a place where she's saying let's have some negotiations.
Welcome back to the Takeout. Just moments ago, President Trump was asked about a request that came to him today from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries to meet to resolve the government shutdown. Here's what he said.
They're doing this because they have Trump derangement syndrome. But I would love to meet. I would like to meet with both of them. But I set one little caveat. I will only meet if they let the country open.
That's where the White House is. Meanwhile, Democrats in the House and in the Senate are standing firm, demanding that Republicans must negotiate a way to extend Affordable Care Act subsidies. On that topic and others, I spoke earlier today with Pennsylvania Democratic lawmaker Chris Deluzio. Pennsylvania Democratic Congressman Chris Deluzio coming to us from his district in western Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Just a couple of moments ago, President Trump in the Rose Garden talking about the shutdown, day 21. He clearly relishes, in his words, the ability to close down Democrat programs through the Office of Management and Budget. How much longer could you as Democrats sustain this shutdown, and are you going to continue to support the Democratic leadership in its current posture about ending it?
Look, I think our position is clear. The American people are with us. They want action to stop the skyrocketing healthcare costs. They want a bipartisan deal to negotiate reopening the government. I've been back and forth to Washington the last couple of weeks, and the one thing that's been consistent is there are no House Republicans. Mike Johnson's canceled votes. I'll cite you something I did, Major. I sent a survey out to my district asking simply, should Speaker Johnson have us back in session voting to reopen the government? 93% think that should happen. This isn't that complicated. We should be working out a deal, do something about these expiring healthcare tax credits, reopen the government on a bipartisan basis. I think that's a straightforward, common sense way to get through this.
If I'm a constituent of you, let's do this thought experiment, and I say, but Congressman,
Sure.
The Republicans say if you vote to reopen the government, they'll have a negotiated settlement with you. Why not?
Well, they haven't told us that. And in fact, every time I've been down in Washington, again, the House Republicans aren't in session. Let's negotiate a deal. Let's take action now on these health care tax credits that are expiring. In Pennsylvania, Penny is the Affordable Care Act exchange. People are getting notices imminently. That open enrollment period starts in just a week or two. This is happening right now. We need action right now to deal with these expiring tax credits. That's on top of the big, beautiful bill the Republicans passed that makes cuts to things like Medicaid and healthcare, where lots of people in my district are going to feel a lot of pain and crash household budgets if Congress doesn't take action, and take action very soon.
But to that point, Speaker Johnson and Majority Leader Thune has said if Democrats vote to reopen the government, there will be negotiations. They've made that promise. Why isn't that good enough?
Because those notices are going out already. People are going to be seeing, and we've already seen the averages in my district. Both of my counties, Beaver and Allegheny County, we're going to expect to see around 75% increases in premiums for people. It's already happening. And so we need to extend these tax credits right now as a bare minimum. And I think folks who are seeing, not just on the ACA exchanges, but maybe you've got employer coverage, those premiums are going up for everybody. And they'll be worse when you factor in the Medicaid cuts and you factor in folks who will lose health insurance and then might find themselves in an emergency room because they can't afford their care, where those costs go on everybody. This is a healthcare crisis that the Republicans making. They should work with Democrats right now to fix it, not some open-ended promise to do it in the future.
I'll play you sound from Senator John Fetterman about the shutdown and get your reaction on the other side. Let's play it.
I'm going to vote for the Republican side because it's wrong to shut the government down.
I mean, it's a hard rule. It's like I can't ever or will ever vote to shut our government down.
Right now, I'm only one of 2 Democrats that are voting to keep the government open. And I have chose to do that because I think it's like a core responsibility as a senator.
A core responsibility to keep the government open. How do you respond to that, Congressman Deluzio?
I think a shutdown is foolish, and yet the Republicans refuse to work with Democrats. And remember, they have full control of the House, the Senate, the White House. If they need Democratic votes, they should negotiate with us. And look, I have some disagreement here with the senator, as you can imagine. I can't imagine he'd really say he'd support shutting down the government or supporting a funding bill that repealed, say, the Civil Rights Act or Social Security. And so, of course, you have to have values as part of this. And again, I think it's clear what should happen. There should be a bipartisan deal that takes action to extend these soon-to-be expiring healthcare tax credits.
What's the practical effect politically, Congressman, of Fetterman siding with the Republicans, in your view?
Far be it from me to guess. I just think that people in my district want us to work out a compromise. They are seeing, and they're about to see it in a much more real way, these increases through Penny, our ACA exchange in Pennsylvania. They want action on healthcare, and it's already been blowing up too many family budgets. I'll give you one example. In my district, you take a 60-year-old couple making around the average typical household income. They're going to see their premiums go up $12,000 for the year if action doesn't happen to these tax credits. That would blow up any family's budget around that income level. It's exactly why we need a deal here, again, on government funding and to extend these tax credits.
Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz joins me now from Capitol Hill. He is chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee. Senator, great to have you with us. You pay very close attention in your chairmanship to air traffic controlling, TSA, and all related airport matters. What's happening with the shutdown and the real-world impact on Americans traveling?
Well, look, there are real-world delays. We're seeing flights being canceled. We're on day 22 of the Schumer shutdown, and this shutdown needs to end. Right now, today, there are 50,000 TSA employees who are going into work, and they're not getting paid. There are 14,000 air traffic controllers that are going into work, and they're not getting paid. And this is wrong, and we're ending up we're seeing delays. Houston Hobby Airport last night had a ground stop because of a shortage of air traffic controllers, and these problems will only get worse. And Major, I got to say, the Democrats are really cynical about this. One Democrat senior aide told Politico that the shutdown will continue, quote, until planes start falling from the sky. Well, that's not funny, and it's utterly irresponsible. And this is visiting pain on a whole lot of federal workers for no point whatsoever, other than to throw a political temper tantrum and for Chuck Schumer to prove to his left-wing base that he really, really, really hates Donald Trump. This needs to end. Later today, I'm going to vote for the 12th time Republicans will vote to reopen the government. And at least 11 times in a row, the Democrats keep voting to keep it shut down. They need to end this game.
Senator Cruz, you have what I would regard, if you'll allow me, a unique perspective on waging a battle over a shutdown, over an issue you thought was most important. Your party didn't. Ultimately, you lost in that. Do you have some advice or strategic insight for Democrats? Because you were once in a place not dissimilar, not exactly I'm not trying to compare the two precisely, but not in many ways dissimilar from where they are now.
Well, actually, the two shutdowns were very, very different. In 2013, that shutdown, what happened there, the House of Representatives passed a bill that funded the entirety of the federal government except for Obamacare and did not fund Obamacare. And what happened is Harry Reid and the Democrats in the Senate refused to pass that. They forced a shutdown then. And I think it was a mistake when Harry Reid forced a shutdown then. And I think it's a mistake now when Chuck Schumer is forcing a shutdown. But there is a very big difference. In this instance, Democrats, their ostensible demand is they want free taxpayer-provided health care for illegal aliens. Now, that's not what the American people want. That is wildly unpopular. But at the end of the day, Major, that's not even really their demand. That's ostensibly what they're asking for. What this is about fundamentally is back in March when we kept the government open then, Democrats worked with us to keep the government open. And Chuck Schumer almost lost his job. Schumer is facing a political crisis because the extreme left wing of his party got furious with him that he kept the government open. And so this shutdown now is just, it's performance art. It is Chuck Schumer trying to show to the radicals who were marching in these rallies this weekend that he is as tough as they are and he hates Donald Trump as much as they do. And one of the problems that Schumer and the Democrats have, they don't have an exit ramp. We've been shut down 22 days. I don't know if this will continue another day, another week, another month. We could be sitting here at Thanksgiving, the busiest travel time of the year, with air traffic controllers still not being paid and delays for the flying public. That is a terrible outcome. I've filed legislation to pay the air traffic controllers, pay TSA, pay the essential air personnel so that the flights can keep going. But we'll see. I think we will vote on that either this week or next. We'll see what the Democrats do. My prediction is they'll end up voting no because they're more captive to the radical base than they are listening to the needs of their constituents.
Congressman, let's talk about the shutdown. I want to play sound for you from today from the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Let's play it.
Here's the kicker. The Democrats can't even agree on what they want right now. If you polled congressional Democrats on what it would take to reopen the government, you would not get a uniform answer.
Your response?
Yeah, well, so what is my response. Look, we're a big coalition. We are not part of a cult. We do not simply salute one leader, and if he says one thing one day and the exact opposite the next, we go ahead and agree with it. The point is, negotiate with our leadership. Mike Johnson has been saying things like that. Meanwhile, he shut down the House. The House is not in session. That is unprecedented. I've been through a number of government shutdowns, every single one. House was in session trying to solve the problem. Number two, if Mike Johnson wants to know what Democrats want, negotiate. Let's talk. And I can tell you at the top of that list is health care. And that has been very, very clear. As of November 1st, people will have to start make their selections. Without an extension of the health care tax credits for the ACA, millions of people will lose their health insurance. Millions of more will see their costs skyrocket. And Mike Johnson's response was, well, we're just going to extend the government until November 21st, which is too late. Not going to deal with it. But more than anything, he should be negotiating. He wants Democratic votes. He needs Democratic votes in the Senate. And his answer is, no, Democrats just have to vote for what we say. They have to vote for the Republican budget, and we won't even talk to them. We won't even negotiate. And then to demand that? So whether or not you can poll, how many ever Democrats there are in the country and get a slightly different answer, for the Speaker of the House to be acting like that is a relevant fact in this debate is ridiculous. We have our leadership. Negotiate with them. He has refused to do that since mid-September, and he's refused to even have the United States House in session doing its job. There are other things that we could be doing that are important to this country, but Mike Johnson has shut down the United States Congress, and that simply enhances the power of President Trump, and I have to believe that's a big part of the reason of why he's doing it. He's abdicating the responsibility of the legislative branch, abdicating his responsibility as Speaker of the House. There was a member of Congress who said he wanted Donald Trump to be Speaker of the House. He's gotten his wish. That's effectively what's happening here. Congress should exist, and we should do our job, and Mike Johnson has abdicated that responsibility.
Absent a willingness from the Republican leadership in the Senate to negotiate, how does this end, Congressman Smith?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's a couple of different possibilities. We have heard that the White House does understand the problem with health care. Thus far, they haven't taken the step to want to do anything about it. But hopefully, as we've shown a light on this particular problem, that gets people to pay more attention to it. And it may well end with Democrats saying, look, as we get to November 1st, our opportunity to address this health care crisis has kind of passed. The Republicans have shown they don't care. They don't care about people losing their health insurance. They don't care about the health costs going up. So maybe we need to come into some other type of an agreement. That is possible. But it is absolutely crucial that Democrats did what we did on October 1st and didn't just sign up for a budget that was going to continue the Trump budget, continue the Trump government, and do nothing to address the health care crisis, which was coming at us in a matter of weeks. So it is possible that we shift tactics in terms of how to get their attention, but the issue is incredibly important. It is just really, really unfortunate that the Republicans don't seem to want to address it or deal with it in any manner.
Washington Democratic Congressman Adam Smith, I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you. Welcome back to Takeout. Here is your federal government shutdown update. It has a kind of repetitive quality to it. The Senate today failed to advance Republican and Democratic measures that would have paid some federal workers, military members, contractors continuing to work without a paycheck. Former Texas Republican congressman and former chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Kevin Brady, joins me now. He's a very significant spokesperson for the Alliance for Competitive Taxation. It's good to have you here,
Kevin.
Good to
see you, Major.
Listen, you've been through this, former member of Congress. You know all the people involved, or many of them. You also know how both sides can get entrenched in shutdowns, but you also know there has to be a way out. There has to be an off-ramp. But I will tell you, Kevin, I don't see one.
This one's unusual. I mean, we've both been through many of these. The normal dynamics aren't in place.
You've been in the room negotiating. I've been outside covering.
Absolutely. And, what normally brings people together really isn't. This feels like one of the calmer shutdowns in the sense that for the public, they don't feel it as much.
Not yet.
There are real consequences, no question about it. But the president's done some things to offset military pay and
some other parts of federal law enforcement.
Some things there, but
there's
those
pressure building on food nutrition.
Short measures, and you got the politics. Both parties feel like they're doing fine politically in this. I still think at the end of the day, President Trump is the deal maker in here, and there's no question he's got a lot on his plate right now, but still feels good about
He's going to Asia tomorrow night and will be gone for a week.
Yeah.
That means this goes another full week. At minimum.
What I think is a little frustrating, I think had Democrats accepted the 7-week CR, they would
Continuing resolution to keep the government open.
Keep it open. they'd be deep in negotiations right now, including with the White House, because I think two things. Everyone knows there's got to be some action on the healthcare subsidies. There has to be a full year of funding, like a real full year of funding. Everyone knows that. You need some time to do it.
Right.
So I think right now they're in a case where, you know, this CR is going to go, this shutdown's going to go a while.
Right.
Because you've still got to get people, you can't reach a deal to go a couple weeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
The deal has to be for the year at this point. So yeah, the dynamics
you're onto something that I want my audience to understand. So my audience might say, well, they need to negotiate. What you're saying is, yes, that's true. Obviously, that's true. But that's a long process with many things on the table. And the longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes because of all the pressures you just described.
Yeah, it is. The short-term bill was for a short-term, buy some time to negotiate. Now they're to the point where you got to do all the work. You know what I mean? Like
Not
for
just
the
that.
next year. That's exactly right.
You've got to fund all the federal government for the next fiscal year. You've got to resolve, if it's resolvable, the future of extended Obamacare subsidies that came out of COVID. That's a lot to do in a very short period of time.
There is. In each of those regards.
What effect do you think, Kevin, the elections in Virginia and New Jersey and New York will have on this? Do you think anyone's waiting for that to see?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so that's not a factor.
I don't think it is at all.
So they're just waiting it out and seeing who blinks. But if nobody blinks, this goes on and on.
It goes a while. But I think always the wild card's the president. You know what I mean? Because he's the president. And
do you think he goes to Asia feeling that the shutdown in any way weakens him or the image of America?
He multitasks. No.
Okay.
But he multitasks so much. Look, just the fact he's in Asia. During tax reform, he called me effectively at 3 a.m. where he was at to talk about some policy there. He didn't get off the phone until 4 a.m. where he's at. So look, he's capable of negotiating something any hour of the day, anywhere he is in the world.
So if he's inclined, he might even pick up the phone when he's in Asia and try to resolve it or set it in motion.
But he's staying very unified within the Republican. Democrats are unusually unified here. But boy, the sooner they get back to the table,
the better off we'll all be. Kevin, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you again.